Thanks for that kind introduction. As Dave mentioned, my name is Obi Abuchi, and I run a company called Motivatem. And we have what we call the Motivatem mission, which is to inspire people and organizations towards greatness. And that's the motivation behind the consulting services, the training, and the coaching services that we provide. But it's also the motivation behind my forthcoming book, The Magic of Monday. But I'll tell you a bit more about that in a short while. Just some personal things about me. I am married to an amazing woman, and we have 3 exuberant boys. Our oldest is 5, our second is 3, and our baby is coming up to 1. And I get questions from friends and just other people sometimes saying, "Are you going to try for a girl?" My answer is the same all the time. The car is full. I feel blessed enough as it is. But I do say to my wife, though, that she gets to be our queen and our princess all rolled up into one. So I think she likes that. Anyway, I am excited to be speaking to the group of entrepreneurs here. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why. Entrepreneurs are some of the most exciting and quickest learners on the planet. But they can also be a challenging group because, as you know, when you're learning, you're interested in value that'll make a difference to your business, not tomorrow, not 10 years, today. And so I want to leave you with 3 ideas over the next 15, 20 minutes that will inspire you and your business to achieve great things. And I'm going to take the first idea from disasters. Yeah, disasters. I read a book recently. It's part of the 501 series. Some of you may be familiar with that. And this particular book was the 501 most devastating disasters. And it covered the world's worst disasters over the last 2,500 years. And it included the eruption of Vesuvius in AD 79 that literally wiped out the Roman cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum. Now, I'm just curious, has anyone here been to Pompeii in Italy? My wife and I, we were there a few years ago visiting the ruins of Pompeii. And we actually bumped into Sir Cliff Richard, and as you'd expect, he wanted to take a picture with me and ask for my autograph. And I obliged. It's true that we saw him. But seriously, though, it was sobering to think that these cities had lost 25,000 lives just following the eruption of Vesuvius, as they were covered with layers and layers of volcanic ash and lava. Now, further on in the book, it also referred to the Black Death of the mid-14th century that wiped out half of Europe at the time over a 4-year period, 25 million lives. Closer to home here in the UK, it talked about the Great London Fire of 1666 and the sinking of the Titanic in 1912 that resulted in the loss of 1,500 lives. Now, if you bring it fast forward a number of decades, in 1986, it talked about the explosion of the nuclear power plant in Chernobyl. And that was a disaster that should never have happened. And even closer, just in the last decade, it had the tsunami of 2004 that resulted in the loss of 230,000 lives. Now, there was one disaster that, as I read about it, one of the 501 that was closer to home for me. And if things had gone a different way, I wouldn't have been born. And the disaster that I'm referring to is the 1967 Nigerian-Biafran War. And I've heard stories from my mom, uncles, and aunts just about the devastation that happened the evening as they were sleeping. They heard about their city falling, and they had to walk miles to a different city as teenagers. They talked about how the family was separated. They didn't see my grandfather for 3 years and didn't know whether he was alive or dead. They talked about how they saw women on the side of the road giving birth and then dying, and their babies dying as well because there was no support. And how even at the end of the war, villages were pillaged and women were raped by the soldiers. And it was a devastating time. And when the war ended in 1970, by that time, 2 million people altogether had died. And hundreds and thousands of those had died just from starvation. Now, I know what you might be thinking at this stage, because if I were in your shoes, I'd be thinking the same thing. Obi, there's nothing inspiring about disasters, those disasters you've mentioned, or any disasters for that matter. And you know what? I totally agree. Because disasters, they're sobering. They remind us of how fragile we are as human beings and how much is outside of our control. And nothing reminds us of that like disasters do. So you might be thinking, well, okay, what has any of this got to do with being an entrepreneur or running your own business? Well, it's true that there is a dark and a humbling side to disasters. But there's also, when you look time and time again at the disasters over the centuries, there are 2 significant lessons that we get to learn. And the first one is this: that even in times of adversity, we get to choose our own response. You've only got to read Viktor Frankl's book, In Search of Meaning, as he writes about the Holocaust, which took place between 1933 and 1945 and resulted in the loss of 11 million lives, including 6 million Jews. And he writes about his time in a Nazi concentration camp and how he was trying to make sense of life. And one of the things that he says is that everything can be taken from a man or a woman, but one thing: the last of the human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. So our lesson from disasters is that even in challenging situations and setbacks, we can choose our response. And the second thing is that challenges and disasters, they often bring forth from us resources, capabilities, ideas that we never even knew we had within us. And you see that as communities are rebuilt or nations that have gone through devastating disasters, they choose forgiveness instead of hatred. And you've only got to think about just some situations where those ideas don't even come just from the people that are affected themselves, but sometimes they come from people outside that have looked in on those disasters. And take the Biafran War, for example. There was a positive legacy from what was a dreadful, dreadful tragedy. And that was in the form of a man that was moved by just the plight that he saw, the starving Biafrans. And this man was Dr. Bernard Kouchner, a French doctor. And he went on and founded an aid agency that has gone on to become one of the world's most effective aid agencies, and that's Médecins Sans Frontières. I'm not French, so I probably haven't pronounced that right. But you know, disasters, challenges, difficulties, there's no question about it. They are tragedies that we don't wish on anybody. But they, over the centuries, have left us with legendary stories of just tremendous and extraordinary just courage in the face of adversity. And let's just bring this closer to home and talk about our role as entrepreneurs. The global economy and the recession could very easily be considered an economic disaster that's resulted in the closure of businesses, in the loss of jobs, and sadly even the loss of lives. But I think there's nobody better equipped than entrepreneurs to make a positive difference and to begin to turn things around in the UK economy, especially because of the day-to-day challenges that you face in running your business. Because see, one of the most exciting things about being an entrepreneur is that the challenges that you face, the setbacks, the small-scale disasters, they bring forth from you resources that you never realized you had. And I'm thinking of things like resilience, like tenacity, like courage. Challenges bring growth. The setbacks that you face in your business, they bring growth. Of course, the hard part for everyone is embracing those challenges. And most people don't embrace the challenges because they fail to see the opportunity for growth. About 6 years ago, I decided to embrace a challenge of my own, a different kind of challenge. I led a team of 5 to Costa Rica. Our goal was to raise £14,000 for the Prince's Trust. And so we flew over there. We raced against some other teams from the west to the east coast of Costa Rica, and it included things like hiking, biking, kayaking, and river rafting. We went from just one side to the other, 160 miles in total, various altitudes. I got sunburnt. We had accidents as teams, but you know what? We made it in the end, and it was a joy to get there. And I remember coming back. I came back with a tan, believe it or not. I came back with some aching muscles, but I also came back with some fantastic memories and a medal. And on the back of the medal, there was a quote by the French playwright Molière. And it said this: "The greater the obstacle, the more the glory in overcoming it." The greater the obstacle, the more the glory in overcoming it. You know, challenges bring growth. The greater the challenge, the greater the obstacles, the greater the growth. And so the exciting thing about being an entrepreneur is that the challenges you face are bringing out an array of resources that you never realized you had within that will help you build a great business. So that's the first idea I want to leave you with, just to embrace challenges that will help you build a great business. Now, the second idea is that the challenges that you face and the thing that will help you just make the most of those and come out strong and come out triumphant is to actually pursue greatness. Now, let me ask you a few questions. If you had a choice between having a good car or a great car, how many of you would choose a great car? Show of hands. Okay, no surprise there. All right. Now, what if you had a choice between choosing to have a great relationship with your spouse, partner, boyfriend or girlfriend, or a good relationship? How many of you would choose a great relationship? Okay, again, no surprise. Now, just a word of warning to the marrieds among you. You might be thinking, but what if I want to change? No! You stay with the person you have and make that great. Okay, so just finally then, about your businesses. If you had a choice between building a good business or a great business, how many of you would choose a great business? Again, no surprise there. Of course, that leaves us with a question, doesn't it? How do you define greatness? You know, maybe you define greatness as doing something that isn't easily done. We're going to figure out our USP and outperform our competitors. Or maybe you define greatness as doing something majestic, something that'll get you on the news. Or maybe it's just about the bottom line. We made £1 billion, so we're great. You know, at Motivatem, when we think about individuals and organizations, here's our definition. Greatness is pouring the best of your creativity, your motivation, your resources, your skills, and your talents into activities, into products, into services, or ventures that bring about the best impact for your customers, both now and in the long term. And I guarantee that you will struggle to put a price on the difference that that attitude and pursuing greatness will make to your customers, to your business, to your community even, and indeed to our world. I mean, just think about the iconic brands of today, the Googles, the Apples, the Microsofts. Knowingly or unknowingly, they have built their businesses under this banner of greatness, pouring the best of their creativity, of their motivation, of their resources, their skills, their talents, and in some cases, limited resources at the start, like most businesses or most entrepreneurs, into products, into services, into activities that are best for the customer now and in the long run. And like I said earlier, this isn't just a great idea for us, especially at Motivatem. It's a mission. And it's the motivation behind our services, but also the motivation behind my forthcoming book, The Magic of Monday. And you know, most people, you probably know them, they go to work on a Monday depressed, and they can't wait till Friday. There's the common phrase, thank God it's Friday, it's the weekend. Now, none of you, of course, because you're entrepreneurs, but most people fail to realize the magic that can happen when we give the best of who we are in the moment to what we're doing right here, right now. So as entrepreneurs, how are you doing with your business? How creative are you being with the products and the services that you're providing to your customers? Are you pouring the best of your creativity and your resources, however limited that may be, into making them great? And if you've got people working for you, are you drawing out the best of their talents and their skills to the benefit of your organization, but also to help them to contribute in a great way? Like I said, the second idea, if you want to leave a lasting impression on your customers, and I'm sure for most of us here that will be yes, then you need to be committed to pursuing greatness. Now, I know that for every business there's another important element, and it's the bottom line. We need to make profit. And I'm totally with you on that. The bottom line is important, but I can't imagine that you pursue greatness and you wouldn't see a positive impact on the bottom line. So by all means, don't forget the bottom line, but pursue greatness to impact it. Just speaking of the bottom line, how many of you would like to have a comfortable retirement someday and even leave a decent inheritance for your family, kids? Okay, no surprise. I mean, I'm totally with you. That's what I'd like to do. But with the few minutes that we have left, I want to leave you with an idea that'll get you thinking not just about, say, 50 years from now, but 75, 100 years from now. What legacy are you going to leave behind? I was driving my son to school a couple of months ago, my older boy, And he came out with one of those comments that only 5 years do. For some reason, his favorite number is 100. And so he said, "Dad, you're going to live to be 100. I thought, okay, that's cool. That means I've got 60-something years to go. And it's weird. You might think this is weird, but it got me thinking about my funeral. And I started writing my eulogy. Now, some of the work that I do is consulting, and that's all about strategy and implementing strategy. So I think I had that consulting hat on and thought, okay, let's begin with the end in mind. But I started writing my eulogy, and I wrote it in the words of my sons. And I said, okay, I'm going to start writing this. And the reason I did that was I thought, I want to start living today in a way that inspires them to make a difference. And I told my wife about it, and even told my older boy about it. And as they grow up, I'm going to print this out, and I'm going to read it to them and say, boys, this is what Daddy is working towards. This is what I want to be like for you, boys. And I want it to be true. Because there's a lot of talk about the need to have wills, and wills are all about, when I'm gone, this is how you share out my possessions. But I want to go beyond that and just leave a legacy for the boys. And one of the things that I wrote about was courage. Courage. You know, it can be challenging just in this world, being all of who you are and giving the best of your capabilities to stand out, to make a difference, to invest all that you have into products and services that make a difference for your customers. But I'm saying to my boys, hey, your dad is going to be courageous enough to make a difference in this world. What legacy are you going to leave behind? So 3 ideas to inspire you to greater achievements in your business. The first one, embrace the challenges that you face as an entrepreneur. Because the exciting thing about being an entrepreneur is that the challenges, the setbacks, those small-scale disasters are bringing forth from you resources that you never realized you had inside, like the tenacity, resilience, and courage. Second thing, pursue greatness. Pour the best of your creativity, your motivation, your resources, your skills, your talents into activities, products, services, or ventures that benefit your customers now and in the long term. And just a final thing, no one, when they're on their deathbed, wishes that they had spent longer in the office. What legacy are you going to leave behind for your family, for your community, and even for our world? Thanks very much for listening. It's been great speaking to you. And if I can ever be of assistance or you want to stay connected, then please get in touch. Thanks so much.